welcome to Dooner's World. I'm your host, Mike Dooner Muldoon, broadcasting from Mayapack, New York, about an hour north of Manhattan. I got a wonderful guest tonight. We got Alina Boyte, who's a powerful, powerful attorney in Mississippi, and she's got her own podcast where she talks about heartfelt emotions and how you find your true happiness in your heart and meet that with the world's demands. And she's awesome. Before we get to that, I want to thank Gary Floyd. Oh my God, what a great conversation I had with Gary from the Dixon Sister Double Happiness. It was so much fun. Thanks, Gary, for being on, brother. It was awesome. I want to have you back on, talk more about the Buddha Brothers and what you're doing now and upcoming music and things like that. So I got a lot of good stuff coming up on the show. Tomorrow I got Amy Culver, right? CBD podcaster. She's awesome. Almost more energy than me, if you could imagine. So be careful with tomorrow's energy. It's going to be dynamite. I'm going to be on Lana Reed's podcast on Friday. I've got Pauline Butcher coming on. Where's her book? Pauline's book. Oh my God. It's so good. Freak Out My Life with Frank Zappa. She's coming on Sunday. I have so many questions. What a great document. Thank you so much for writing it. Can't wait to talk to you about it. Who else we got? Andrew Love. We got Stephen Schofield. We got Jacob Thornton. We got Jody Kringle. We got Johnny Ford. I'm going to be on I'm going to be on someone else's show, Mind Dog TV, on 22nd. The same day earlier, Arthur Barrow from Zappa's band is going to be on my show. He just produced Robbie Krieger's last solo album, which came out, I think, last week or the week before, where they do Chunga's Revenge. Can't wait to talk to Arthur. That's just amazing. Chris Franz from the Talking Heads. Are you kidding me? October 1st. It just keeps going. I have a special show planned on hair. Everyone knows hair. We all love hair. I'm going to have a special show on the 7th of October on that. On the 13th, I got artists coming in. I got so much going on. It's amazing. But enough of that. Let's get Alina Boyte in to talk about what's going on in Mississippi. We're all wondering in New York what's going on in Mississippi. Hey, Alina.
Hey, Mike.
Welcome to Dooner's World.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. So where in Mississippi are you?
I am in Raymond, which is about 30 miles south from Jackson, the capital.
Okay.
And it's kind of a historical part of the state. But we're about 30 miles south of Jackson, I think. I think south. Yeah, I think south.
I was watching a podcast the other day preparing for a show, and I heard the term tip of the sip because they're talking about North Mississippi, and I was like, I never heard that before, but that's pretty cool. The tip of the sip.
No. So it's so funny. So I didn't grow up in the U.S. I grew up in Malaysia, actually.
Kuala Lumpur, right? Kuala Lumpur.
Yes. And then I went to school out in California and came down to Mississippi. And there are so many phrases in Mississippi that just doesn't make sense.
Well, tip of the sip kind of makes sense. It's kind of cool, right? I mean,
so what does that mean?
The tip of Mississippi. Tip of the sip.
Oh, the tip of the sip.
Tip of the sip, yo. Tip of the sip, yo.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
So my husband is from Mississippi. So whenever I hear a phrase that doesn't quite, it's like, what does that mean?
So you went to school in Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, I went all the way up to my undergraduate in Kuala Lumpur.
So basically elementary, middle, and high school. You did your whole, as far as the U.S. interpretation of that, right?
Yes, exactly, right.
And then you came to California?
And then I went to England first.
Oh, England first. Cool.
And then I went back to Malaysia. And then I came to California.
So how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
27.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that must have been, what was it like when you first came here?
I having spent time in England, I like California a lot better because it's warm and the climate is much more like Malaysia.
It doesn't rain as much.
It doesn't rain as much. It's not. Yeah, the days are long. you get warm food. You don't have to go looking for warm food.
Right.
It's a lot of food in England is cold. And when I went to England, I was 20 or 21. And it was hard because spending most of my life in Malaysia, it's hard going to a place where the food's cold and the weather's cold and
And the bars close at 10 p.m. and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so what brought you to the US? What was it at 27 when you said I got to get out of here? I got to go to the United States.
Yeah, it's so funny. After graduate, so when I went to England, I missed home so much, and I was so happy to go back to Malaysia after graduating from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you did your undergrad. You did undergrad in UK, like a 4-year university.
No, I did a postgrad, which was a 1-year master's program.
Oh, gotcha.
And I went back to Malaysia, and I had a mentor who said that, you know what, you should apply for this Fulbright scholarship. It was like, and he convinced me to apply for it. And at that time I kind of, I spent my education was in law, and so when I went right up to the UK, and when I came back, I wanted to do something along the lines of policy making, or maybe economics, or some kind of like a advisory role that I could play with the country. But it turned out that, and he convinced me to apply for the Fulbright to do this, and I did. I didn't think I would get it, but I did.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and ended up back in law school in the US, thinking,
at Stanford?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, how about that?
Yeah, how about that, right? But I had really wanted to do something else besides law, kind of like broaden my horizons, but ended up back in law school doing now a PhD in law. And then
in your late 20s. Now you're in the late 20s, right? So it's
yeah.
Yep, okay.
And and then after graduation, I went back to Malaysia for another 2 years, and then took up a tenure track position with Mississippi College Law School.
So you went from California, graduated, went back to Malaysia, and from there you jumped into Mississippi.
Yeah.
Wow, there you talk about crazy cultures, going from California to Kuala Lumpur to Mississippi. Whoa.
Exactly. Right.
Talk about a whirlwind of cultures.
Yeah, I mean, I felt really comfortable in California, because it's very much culturally, it was easy to find Malaysian food, Malaysian friends.
New York and California are major melting pots. You can find anybody within a half a block, or I get that. Yeah. Yep.
But it took a bit of readjustment coming to Mississippi.
I'm sure. Have you found anybody from Kuala Lumpur in Mississippi yet?
Yes. So
good.
It turned out that there is quite an active, not a very large, but quite an active Malaysian. I wouldn't say just Kuala Lumpur, but Malaysian community.
Well, that's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to hold on to their culture, a little bit, even if it's a meeting once a week, and you get together and break bread and have a couple glasses of wine or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's important stuff. That's cool. That's cool. So what was the year you came to Mississippi again?
2007.
So you've been there for 13 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
I met someone who's my husband from Mississippi. And then we have a 5-year-old who is going to school in the Montessori school here in Jackson.
Oh.
And so,
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, I do want to, I keep telling my husband, I want to go to the Northeast. That's the only place that I've never lived in the U.S.
Right, that's right.
Where you are, right. where there are clearly 4 seasons.
Yes, that's the one good part. I've always said that. That's the one. Yes, we have to shovel our driveways, and yes, we sweat our butts off in August. But it has those 4 seasons where we get to look at in October, and we get to be out with a shirt and maybe a light sweatshirt in April.
And I keep saying, the fall weather in the Northeast, or the fall, the orange and it's so pretty. I want to live there. And he's like, oh, but it's so cold.
But it's not always cold. It's cyclical, and it's good for the spirit, because I think it's cyclical like the spirit, and to feel all of that. Like in California, your summer, 3/4 of the time, right, or most of the time. And which is great. But you don't have to shovel your driveway, but there's something about when it snows and there's 12 inches of snow out and you can't go anywhere, and you're stuck with your wife and your kids, and you watch a movie and you make hot cocoa, and there's something beautiful about that too.
Yeah, therapeutic. Yeah.
Now, if you go to Alaska and you do that every day, it's not so cool, maybe.
Yeah.
So did you, when you first got there, were you immediately a law professor, or did you, when you
Uh,
first got to Mississippi?
so it was so in academia, they have what they call the tenure track,
Mm-hmm.
so you
Sure.
kind of like an assistant professor when you're expected to write and teach
Uh-huh.
well and,
Do your boss's job for a couple of years
yeah,
while he slacks off, right?
kind of like put in service, to
Mhm.
the law school.
Paying your dues. Paying your dues.
Yeah, exactly. So you do that for like 6-7 years.
Wow, that's a long
You kind of
time.
like, yeah, you kind of move up the rank. I mean, you start off as assistant professor, but you're not tenured at the point, and
Uh-huh.
then you kind of move up the ranks by publishing more and you know
Sure.
getting good evaluation from your classes and your
Mm-hmm.
students. You kind of move up the ranks, and then eventually you get tenured, which is kind of like
Isn't that 10 years? It's usually 10 years is the number I always think of with tenure.
for
Is it
tenure.
not?
It depends on the I wouldn't say the school, the discipline.
Mm.
So for history, I think it's a little bit longer.
Okay. Okay.
Like philosophy, religion, those are a little bit longer to get tenured.
You
But I
need
think
50 years to be able to teach religion.
yeah, yeah,
You should need
exactly,
50 years to teach it.
exactly, right, yeah. But I think for the professional schools, it's a little bit shorter. Like for the
Okay.
business schools, the law schools, I think even maybe medical school, it's a little bit shorter.
So when you got there and you're with the law school, did you practice private law or you're just a teacher?
Just a teacher.
Just a teacher.
Yeah.
Have you practiced private law in Mississippi at all?
No, so I'm not. You have to pass the bar exam.
Right.
You have to take the bar exam and pass that. And I'm in a little bit of a difficult situation because the required degree to do the bar in the US is the JD. And I don't have the JD because I did a PhD in law, you know what I mean?
Ah, okay.
So there's
Gotcha.
that, and so
Gotcha.
they want me to get my degree from the UK, and it requires chasing down those transcripts. And
At this
then,
point, you've been teaching for 13 years and you're like, hey, is it
yeah,
really worth the effort to do that? Because you're not going to,
exactly.
you're not looking to make $5 million as a defense criminal lawyer, right? So like, it's, why would you bother?
Right. And my law degree is actually a UK law degree, but it was taught in Malaysia.
Oh,
It was like
interesting.
you might think of it like a,
Remote learning.
yeah, but with teachers that would come down from the University of London to teach.
Oh.
It's kind of like maybe like a study abroad.
Sounds like
program.
a hybrid study abroad,
Yeah.
remote like situation. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so the transcripts are also really hard to track
Mm,
for that,
I would
so,
imagine, yeah.
yeah, so it's hard getting the transcripts together to take the US bar, and the degree that I got isn't considered the degree that they want,
Right.
to let you practice, and so I never really got around to doing that.
But it sounds like your heart's led you in other directions since then, right? Particularly last year when you started your podcast.
Yes.
So I went back and listened to your 000, the first one. It's only like 10 minutes long.
And it was so right.
It's so funny because when my first show, I literally grabbed my guitar, like I had a beer and I had a Hawaiian shirt on, and I just like I spoke my message and I played a song, and I was like so disorganized. You, on the other hand, were the antithesis of what I did. You had your perfect intro. You knew what you wanted to do. You knew how you wanted to help people. You had it laid out in beautiful prose. And I was like, oh man, I'm such a hack compared to this woman.
You know what? I actually wrote that script out.
I can tell it was beautiful.
I read
it was
from
great.
the script. And being a law professor, it's hard to just jump in and have nothing, right? which is why I think teaching people to be more heart-centered is so important. Like it's so hard for me to let go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I do. Like and I think there is a lot more need for people to be able to find joy in what they do. And
despite the circumstances.
Yeah, especially the circumstances.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I 100% feel you. 100% feel you.
Which is why when you got in touch, I thought this would be so neat. But I wasn't quite sure. Again, the law professor kicked in. Where
right.
How does this all fit together? Yeah.
I'm full disclosure. My shows. So end of last year, my wife and I going to the new year. We had a death in our family, someone young, and it wasn't supposed to happen. And we were both like drinking too much and heavy. And we go into the new year like, we're going to go on a diet. We're going to get going. So we did. And we hit the ground running. And our yoga studio started a chakra cycle, like right in that first week. And we got on it. We eventually, I lost 35 pounds in 4 months. My wife lost, I forget how much, but like we went to yoga all the time. We were in this chakra cycle. It was going great. I was firing on all cylinders at work. Everything was aligning amazingly. And Alina, check this out. The Saturday, the last day of the chakra cycle of the yoga studio, was the last day they were able to be open in New York. Like it all ended then.
Oh, really?
And then,
wow.
And because that's when it was March 15th, when everything hit. So at that point, like my job kind of dried up. I was traveling to Maryland and doing projects, and it kind of stopped. And out of my yoga and meditation came my show. It was literally, I had a Kundalini awakening on March 30th. Like I've only mentioned that a few times to certain people. It's documented in my logs. Like I got up out of my meditation, walked over to the bookshelf, guided by spirit that was not me, and I pulled every spiritual text off this. I mean, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Wayne Dyer, everything. I lined it up in this weird like formation around my yoga mat. I took pictures and like I've documented all this. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but you know what? This happened to me and it was nuts. That was March 30th. April 8th, I had my first show. And here I am talking to you 73 shows later. I've talking to world famous rock stars. I've talking to
That's amazing.
I've talking to comedians in movies. I talked to a guy who was in the original Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. I have things that are I'm gonna get Lenny Kravitz on my show. I'm gonna get Slash on my show. I'm gonna get Tom Waits on my show. Like there's no limits to what I can do now. I've realized that, and it's. They always say, you know, everyone, it's all about the law of attraction and getting into your heart and to heart-centered happiness and joy. Where's the joy? It's not out there. It's in here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and yoga and meditation is the easiest way to get to it.
And I agree.
You know, and you know, people don't know that yoga, the purpose of yoga is really so you can sit in meditation and reach samadhi and oneness with God, right? So but people think of yoga as like this weird like thing that girls do, and it's no. It's if you want to know, it's better than going to church. Anybody? Sorry, Mom, I know you're Catholic, you try, but it's not the same. There's something special about it, and I know everything you're about in heart-centered joy and happiness. That's where it comes down to. Shut your TV off. Shut the computer off. Shut your mind off. Listen to what's in your heart.
Yeah, I love that. You know, speaking of yoga, I used to do yoga like almost every day because I had a yoga studio right behind my apartment, and this is before I met my husband. But since we met and moved away from that apartment, it hasn't been that accessible. You know, yoga. I mean, like I watched yoga and tried to follow it on the like on YouTube channels, but it's hard to get to a yoga studio for where we live right now. But I love yoga. So
the funny thing is about that. So on that last couple of days before my yoga studio closed, I was like, I felt that it was closing. I knew, like, I was like, wait, there's no Broadway shows. Baseball season's canceled. Like things are getting weird. I was like, we're not going to be able to come here. And I talked to one of my fellow students, Laura, and I was like, we got to do something. Like we need this. Like we can't go without this. And she was like, you're right. So I went home and I messaged my Adrian, the owner of the studio, and I was like, look, I'll pay to like do this online somehow. And she was like, oh, thanks for sending that. I got to figure this out. Within 48 hours, they had Zoom yoga classes. And Alina, I had never used Zoom before. Like I use Microsoft Teams. I'm an IT professional. We use Microsoft Teams. You know, I do video chatting. It's fine all over the world, India, Malaysia, like everywhere, China. But I'd never used Zoom. So within 48 hours, I was zoomed in, and boom, there's 13 fellow yogis in the Brady Bunch window. And I was like, wow, this is cool. So first thing I did was like, I was in survival mode, right? I mean, an hour from New York, second week in March. I thought, you know what? We could all be dead in a couple weeks. Who knows?
Exactly.
Like, or the zombie apocalypse is coming and they're going to bang on my door and want to eat my brains. Like, who knows, right? So I'm like, I got to be able to have this connectivity with all of my family.
Yeah.
So I immediately was like, okay, mom, aunts, uncles. Eventually we had weekly meetings where my family could come on. And then from that, I made my show. I was like, wow, this connectivity. And that's like, generate what you want. If you go inside and feel what's in your heart And
Yep.
and I've been thinking about this for 45. I'm 45 years old. I've been wanting to do something like this where I talk to people about rock and roll and passion and music and art all my life, but never until this happened would I've envisioned this.
Yeah. So it's like everything fell into place just like that,
Well, and
huh?
it came from that. It came from the yoga mat. It came from me
Yes.
sitting and getting to shut up and listen to what's in my heart.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because a lot of times I feel that people tend to live up in their heads and think about,
Yes.
strategize and analyze and focus. And it's a lot of times that clouds your judgment of things,
It could be misguiding.
Is that exactly?
Yeah.
And when you kind of let that go, let the intellect go, and when you keep saying going within, and I think it's true. You I heard you say something about being raised Catholic. I'm Catholic as well, and prayer and meditation and saying the rosary, that brings you within.
It's very similar. Very
Yeah,
similar. These are
exactly.
yes. Yes.
Regardless of the practice, I
It's a
think.
mantra. It's a mantra and a
Yeah,
spiritual feeling.
exactly. And you read a lot of the mystics, like um Saint Therese or Saint Saint Francis,
St. Francis
and
of Assisi, of course.
Assisi, right? Teresa of, I'm forgetting, but
She was
the
mostly
myst
Delhi. I think she did a lot of work in Delhi, Sister Teresa.
yeah, but it's all about going within, because that's when the Catholic tradition talks about the voice of God, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but it's really that, what you say, that law of attraction. What do you attract into that space that's
Mm-hmm.
going to then lead you forward? And it's such a much needed practice today, because so many people, just look at the state of affairs around us, um, and so many people are trying to make sense of the chaos and the confusion and it takes it takes a lot to actually kind of release all that's going on in your mind. um,
Well, I think people let what's going on affect how they feel.
yeah,
And that's what they got to do. They got to look out and say, okay, this is going on. What do I need to be safe? Okay, wear a
right,
mask when I go to the grocery store, take these. And now, what do I need to be joyful within this
yeah,
situation? And a lot of
yeah,
people don't get to that second part. They get pet,
exactly.
and some people don't even make it to the grocery store because they're so scared.
Yeah, they kind of stuck, like when you reached out, you say the difference between surviving and thriving, and I
I
think a
talk
lot
about
of
that all the time. I talk about
yeah,
that all the time.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are stuck in survival mode, and that's when your
Well, they're
mind.
paralyzed. They're paralyzed to the point where all they
Exactly.
can do is survive. So it's
Yeah,
not their fault.
yeah,
It's just their instinctual reaction to
yeah,
oh my God, I just got to be able to get a thing of milk and bread. And that's all they have the energy to do, or emotional, spiritual
mm,
energy to do.
yeah,
And I see it around, and it's tough.
yeah.
I feel bad for a lot of people that are going through that.
And doing research in the way people think, like, because of my focus in intellectual property, I spend a lot of time thinking about the cognitive science and psychology and all that,
Sure,
and
sure.
and we are naturally biologically wired to fear, right? Because cognitively, um
Fight or flight response. It's
exactly,
the
the
most basic thing
adrenaline.
in psychology and
Exactly,
biology you ever learn about.
exactly,
Oh my God, am I going to die? I got to get the F out of here.
exactly,
That's
right,
basic survival instinct.
right. Right, and what you're trying to do, and the heart centered and everything, is really to stop that flight and fight response, and really,
Yes.
yeah, and
Let go of survival. Let go of
exactly,
approval. Let go of acceptance, and just let your
exactly,
heart speak to what you need to do with this time you have here on this earth.
exactly, right, and be present in that moment,
Right.
right?
Right.
um and and a lot of people don't have the tools to do that. We just
Right.
don't, you
Right.
know unless you are raised in one of the tradition that is rich in teaching you these things.
Mm-hmm.
Having being raised Catholic myself, I know the tradition, but Buddhism, I see you mentioned that you you wear those beads, and I see a Buddha behind you. um, you know, the a lot of the religious teachings teach, actually they do teach that Hinduism, Buddhism, Catholicism, um, even Judaism, you know, that 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 removal from this constant chaos and intellectualization of things, you know, and going within. I think that's really important.
But it's also important because they all do the same thing. They present ritual and
Exactly.
quietness of the mind and love in the heart,
Yeah.
and then go from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all religions kind of have that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you get past that, you get into everyone says, "Oh my God, everyone who follows Islam wants to kill every white person."
Yeah.
No, and that's not
Yeah.
what it says, you know. But
Exactly. That's
yeah,
right.
some people interpret it that way, and yeah, they've killed a lot of people. That's bad. But
Yeah.
you know what? Christians have killed more people than fucking anybody. So
Exactly.
fuck you. Sorry, pardon my French. I'm a little
Yeah.
angry about
No,
that.
but it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
religion can be manipulated,
It
right?
is. It
To
completely
serve
is.
right.
But
Think
every
about
religion is.
right.
Even
Exactly.
Buddhism. Even Buddhism has
Right.
corruption and bad things going on within some ranks somewhere.
Right.
But you
It's
know what? Most of them don't.
yeah, for the most majority, right?
Right.
But yeah, but think about the Crusades and think about the
Oh, I've learned about it. I went to Catholic school, first through eighth grade. I learned all about why I don't want to be a Catholic.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
But
any
I want to just digress of my little bash on Catholicism. I've also been able to grow up and mature enough to step back and see the benefits that people get
yeah,
from Catholicism without those negative things.
yeah,
Like they don't go around saying, I'm going to put people's heads on a stakes.
no,
No, they go and they get the solace when they go Sunday and they hear those songs that they've heard
yeah,
since they were 3 years old and their mom and dad taught them. And so I've
mhm.
learned to not be such a dick about it, right? Because
Yeah,
there's so many things that piss me off about it with the
yeah,
boys
yeah,
and all
yeah. I
that
know.
stuff. But you know what?
Yeah,
That's not why my mom goes to church. That's not why my dad goes to church. They go because they
yeah,
get something positive and loving from it.
yeah,
So I think a lot of people that were like me that throw that hate at their to other religions that aren't theirs. You know what? It's all the same path to the same thing, and it
yeah,
all is based on love. Even if
yeah,
the few people you see represent hate in Islam and Catholicism with the priests and the jihad and whatnot, you know what? Most of the people aren't those people. They're the people that are loving their kids, feeding the kids, trying to get them
yeah.
out of college to get a job so they can get the fuck out of their house. Sorry. We're all the same, people. We're all the same.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, deep down inside, I think was, you know, the core makeup of human beings that are basically the same.
That's it. That's
But
it.
yeah,
We all have buttholes and we all have blood. You know, it's there's nothing, eyebrows and hair, right?
yeah,
Yeah. A lot of people
yeah,
move past the basics to get to the complicated things and forget the basics of how we're all connected.
yeah, yeah.
So I want to ask you about music.
Yeah, go ahead.
So are you a musician at all? Do you play an instrument?
I used to play the violin, but my daughter has kind of, you know, pulled the strings apart when she was growing up. So I need to replace the violin, that violin, but
So
I
growing
haven't
up, did you
found.
listen to rock and roll? Did you listen? You're my age, so
Yes,
we were the age when, you know, Nirvana was out and
yes,
Mudhoney and like
yes.
so at that point
And,
you were London or Malaysia in high school? You were in Malaysia still. You were
Nirvana and all
Kuala
that, still
Lumpur.
Malaysia, yeah. And
So what were
it's
you
so
listening to? What was high school like? Did you guys
so
rock?
I
There was no K-pop? Like what were you listening to? What was going
yeah.
on?
So my husband is American, grew up in Mississippi. It's so
Right.
funny that we grew up on the same songs. You know,
What songs?
Brian Adams,
Oh, okay.
uh,
Summer '69, sure.
yeah, Skid Row.
Sure, Skid Row. Yeah, 18 in Life.
Yes, and there's the other one. I remember you. Yeah,
I remember.
that's
Oh, so who was
yeah.
your favorite band in high school when you were in high school? Like who was the band that you were like, oh my god,
You know, I like Wham. So I don't know if
Wham,
you.
George Michael,
Yeah,
very cool.
Jeff Mike.
Yeah,
I like Wham. I
Wham's
like.
very cool.
There was another group too. They weren't as popular as Wham, but they were out from the UK as well.
Which band?
Bros, Bros.
I don't know
Yeah,
them.
it was
I gotta look them up now.
yeah.
That's something
Look
for me to
them up.
check out.
Yeah, they were a UK band around the time that Wham was huge.
Okay. So early '80s, mid '80s, at that time
Yeah.
frame. So
Did you find?
So
Did
did
you
you ever
find
go
that?
to a concert? Did you ever go to a concert in Kuala Lumpur?
So growing up, concerts were not that huge.
Right.
I think now there are more tours from
So what was the
Western
first
countries.
concert you ever saw? Was it when you were in the US or in London? You must have seen something in London. No?
Well, I have never been to like a rock concert, but I've been to like Andrew Lloyd
Oh,
Webber's,
cool. Like
Phantom of the Opera,
oh, Phantom of the Opera is awesome.
musicals.
You got to see Hamilton. You want to see a good one? You got to see Hamilton.
Yeah, I want to. Just haven't had the
Yeah.
chance yet.
I don't
But
know if it's coming to Mississippi yet.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We kind of get the broad end of things, like
Yeah. You, you and your
the
husband, if you and your
leftovers.
husband made a trip up to New York to see Hamilton, I guarantee you would feel it was worth every penny. It's
Well,
one of the most moving musicals I've ever seen.
well, I love musicals.
Yeah. Cool.
But never been to a rock concert. Never.
Oh my gosh, you gotta
Yeah,
go. You
no, I'm
gotta
trying to think.
go.
Yeah, and when I came to when I went to the UK, there was a lot of activities that happened just within the university and college-based activities. So I did a lot of that. And then out in California, I did a lot of like going up Yosemite, going, Lake
There's
Tahoe.
so many beautiful things to see out there. Yeah,
The
yeah.
Moore Woods, Point Reyes. So I didn't go to concerts. Although I would like to, it's never
Well, now it's
drawn
all
me like
now it's all different. Now it's all going to be virtual. It's going to be virtual for who knows, maybe forever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what brought you to make your podcast? So I think it was June 2019. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. You're a little over a year now.
Last year.
You're 15 months now. We can almost stop using months on you like a baby, right? We could say.
Yeah, yeah. 1 year, 1 year and 3 months.
So why did you say I need to have a podcast? What was it that brought you to make it happen?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that happened last year. My dad got really sick. He was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer.
Oh, was he in the U.S.? Was he in the U.S. at the time?
No,
or
he's in Malaysia.
He's in Malaysia.
Yeah, so this was around April or March last year.
Okay.
And I realized that there were other things that I wanted to do with my life besides just teach. And
when you have a sense of mortality running around you, it tends to bring up those kind of things where you're like, you know what, where am I at? I'm going to be there soon, like, or have those challenges, like, so.
But it was also like looking at my little girl and thinking that I want her to grow up in a world where if she wanted to go out to California and look at and watch the whales would still be there, or
right.
And there was a homily that I heard. This was a visiting priest that came to the kind of like the local church. We used to go to the cathedral, but we don't since we moved out of Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
But he was doing a lot of missionary work in Africa. And he came to give a talk, to kind of get some donations for what he was doing. But
sure.
But he was describing life in Africa, and he was telling us about how poor some people were. Like they were so poor that even our pets have better living conditions than the people there. And it was just the one thing that he said that made me I actually cried when he said this he was talking about how poor people were, and he said that there needs to be a world where a mother will never have to say to a child that today is not your turn to eat, because they were so poor that they would take turns to eat, and sometimes
something we can never imagine. We can never imagine that, like
exactly. And sometimes they would give food to the men in the family because they had to go out to work in the farms, so the women who were left behind kind of like had the leftovers. And if you're a child, that's what your mom might say to you: today is not your turn to eat.
Wow.
And that broke my heart, because I looked at my daughter and I could not imagine saying that to her. Like I just cannot bear the thought of having someone say to a child, today's not your turn to eat.
So instill the sense of global stewardship in you. You were like, oh my God, how could these people like be there when we're here, and how can we bridge that gap? Like,
yeah, and it's not like I was never aware I was, but that
sure.
homily really did something. Like
Got you into action. You like, I need to do
yeah,
something.
and I looked at my daughter, and she was just playing on the pew next to me, and when so it was a lot of little things that kind of came together, kind of like your experience, you know, like and when you say that you get that calling, it's hard to put it away.
Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Oh.
Auto issues.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard.
So how long before you did your first show did you like? Had you thought about it being like, I'm going to do this? Was it a month? Because you were so well planned on that first one.
Really?
You knew exactly what you're going to do. You weren't a hack like me, being like, get my guitar, hit record. You had a plan.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so it was a lot of little things. Like there was that homily and my dad, and I came across around that same time too. I came across a quote by Frederick Buechner. So Frederick Buechner is a I think he was Episcopalian or maybe Presbyterian. I think he may be Presbyterian. Mm-hmm. And he said this. He said that your calling is where your calling is that place where your deepest happiness meets the world's deepest hunger.
I love that quote from your podcast. And that's
yes, and that that yeah. So there were a lot of things that kind of led to the podcast because I felt that I was very disconnected from what was real. You know what I mean? It's so which is what I was saying a little bit earlier. It's so easy to intellectualize things that you feel that you can get really disconnected from what really matters, which is your heart, right?
Exactly. But everything you're saying is the law of attraction, because once you get what's in your heart and you put it out there, there's the need of the world that comes and meets it, and then there's samadhi and happiness and joy.
Yeah.
At an exponential level, which you can't do if you don't take what's inside of you and share it with the world, which you're doing through a podcast.
Exactly. And for so long, being in academia, I spent so much time thinking about, the history of intellectual property, that, I mean, it's interesting, but it doesn't have any real impact, so from the podcast, the heart-centered life, and thinking that, we need to give people more tools to come to that place where they feel that they can make an impact, and they feel happy making an impact. My focus with what I do with my research and scholarship has also kind of shifted towards, social impact and social enterprise and
corporate responsibility, corporate compassion.
Exactly, right? And the idea that if you're a corporation, you don't necessarily have to focus on shareholders' wealth maximization. There are other things that can actually be the purpose of a corporation,
Well, you can balance both. They need the money to stay open, but they can balance them both and have good. And the corporation I work for, which I'm not going to mention, has great benefits for gay rights, and they do a lot of programs for the underrepresented minorities in their workforce, because we need to empower them to produce and make money for the shareholders. So it's got to be a balance, right? And I love that thing, because as a lawyer, it's funny because it's heart-centered, but as a lawyer, all you do is in your head, right?
Right.
Lawyers are literally paid to not be in your heart, but be in your head and get away from the heart and destroy the heart. And,
right. Almost, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right. You have the intellect at your level, but yet you're digging into the spiritual.
Exactly. There has to be. Right. There has to be a balance. I mean, the legal system it's meant to uphold justice and all that, but it's also the system that incarcerates.
Not in Mississippi, from what I hear.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's also the system that incarcerates so many innocent people, right?
Yeah.
And
it must be tough for you to see someone with a heart like you at that level, and you see what goes on with all of what you're talking about. It must be.
Yeah, it's so. Yeah, so now I feel like I'm in a position where I can actually make a change.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
before I was just looking at it,
Mm.
intellectualizing it, writing about it, but not really doing anything about it. You know what I mean?
And you're not doing something about it by being a hard-nosed lawyer and going at it legally. You're taking the opposite approach and going
Yeah.
into your heart and bringing love and happiness out to people and bringing them up,
Yeah,
because that will have a more
exactly.
positive ramification on the earth in the long term than if you
Right.
decide to be a hard-nosed lawyer and go at, I mean, well, forget about Mississippi. You'd have to go back to California.
Right. But and also there is a need for the law, right? So the law has to
Yeah.
support that function as opposed to the
Absolutely.
law using the law to achieve. I mean, law is functional. It's not something that we have to follow. It's something that can also serve us, right? And
Sure, it
so
should serve us.
if
The
we
purpose
right,
is to serve us and protect us and make us safe
exactly.
so we can achieve happiness and keep our family safe.
Yeah. And in the wrong hands, law can be abused.
Yeah,
But
it is every day.
used correctly, there is so much good that we can achieve through laws.
It
And
creates a symbiotic relationship in society so we can all function.
exactly,
It's necessary. We need the fire
exactly.
department. We need the police department. Yes, of course.
Yes, and there needs to be more research and more work done in this, to figure out how law can actually support a thriving society instead of,
Yes.
imposing law on society. You have to
Yeah.
follow the law.
Mm.
Yeah, but does the law, what does the law do, right?
Does the law
We
serve
need,
us, the people, or serve you, the
yeah,
politician, or whatever, what
exactly.
have you? Yeah, yeah.
Right. And those are hard questions to ask, but they are
Right.
questions that have to be asked.
And we have to constantly rethink it and keep asking it because it changes
Yeah.
month to month,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so what you've been doing it? So it's 15 months, 16 months now.
Yeah,
Your
50
podcast?
months.
So what have been some of the highlights of your podcast?
Okay, so the highlights.
Like best guests or best time you felt like you got a message out there, or
I think there are a few.
good.
So yeah. So season 2 is a little bit different in that we've kind of focusing on different themes that might promote heart-centeredness. Things like adventure, passion, creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess like you, the first season was just anything goes. Whoever wanted to come. Yeah.
Wild West, just book them and get them on and talk to them.
Yeah. So I had a lot of people come on pre-COVID, where some of the things that they discussed didn't seem appropriate after the shutdown in terms of
Interesting.
Or I thought that's not what the audience would have resonated with the audience at post-COVID. So some of it's kind of keep in view right now. But there was one that Kevin Hoffman, he is a diversity consultant.
I wrote his name down. That's funny because I listened to 3 shows of yours, and 2 of them I wrote down the names because I want to have on my show, and he was one of them.
Yeah, Kevin
he was amazing.
Great. Yes, Kevin is great, and he does such amazing work, and his experiences itself. He was raised by a Baptist pastor, white Baptist pastor, and he's half white, half African American, and he talks about the discrimination and the unequal treatment that he faced coming up, growing up.
Growing Up Black in White. I believe that's the name of his book, right? Growing Up Black in White, Kevin Hoffman.
Yes. And so I really enjoyed talking to him in the first episode. The other one that I thought was really neat was Tom Madsen. So Tom Madsen, he runs a kind of like an entrepreneur institute, like building up entrepreneurs.
Cool.
And he's all his thing is about doing good and making money at the same time, which is consistent with my
interest. Both happen. They can both happen at the same time.
Yeah, with social impact and all that.
Yeah.
And the very first interview, so the very, very first interview I had, that that I put up a Facebook post and say, I have this podcast. If there's anyone who wants to come on, please get in touch with me. The very first one that came on was Daniel Bruce Levin, and he wrote The Mosaic, which is a kind of like a tapestry of different people that this boy met along the way as he was searching for his parents who died.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And the people that he met was like the gardener who taught him, something about a lesson in life, gave him a lesson in life. And then he would go on, and then he would talk to the the person who laid down the roads, and he would impart a different life story to him, and he would learn and he would grow. And eventually he meets the love of his life, falls in love, and ends up with love. But
great story.
Yeah, but it's a story of this boy called Mo, and Mo is actually him. He lost his parents when he was 15. Yeah, and it was really a story of him, coming to understand himself, and eventually finding the right person.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I need to find him and get him on my show. It sounds great.
Yes, yes. He was like the very first person I interviewed.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so those were some of the highlights. Let me see who else I thought was really great.
Or what's coming up? What's coming up next? What do you have what's your vision for the future? Now that COVID's happened, have you retooled? Are you changing your direction? What are you doing now that we're here?
The season 2 was actually a response to COVID.
Right.
Because I started season 2, I think, June this year, I think.
Okay.
June this year, and it was really in response to COVID and trying to be a little bit more focused on the purpose of the podcast going forward, like making sure that we bring in people who could actually talk to the audience.
It's even more important now. Now you really have a captive audience, right? Yeah. So you had done it for a year now, but now everyone's stuck at home, and all of a sudden podcasting and YouTube channels are really more valuable. Like just for content to get messages out, right? It's easier for us to get our message out to people.
Yeah. And also having done it for a year, I'm a little bit more clearer. I'm more clear about the direction that I think it can go, and the impact that it can have.
Sure.
And so that's the plan, that long term, hopefully, we get more people who are interested in social impact, because ultimately the goal of the podcast really is helping people be happy and meet the world's deepest needs from that place. It really is that.
That's a perfect symbiotic relationship, right? Because everybody that has a passion out there, whether it's railroad cars or baseball or rock and roll, there's other people out there with that same passion that are not feeling it and want to feel that. So the more connections we can make and vibrate and pick each other's spirits up, the better off we'll collectively be as a planet.
Exactly, right. It's and people need to know how to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why we're here. That's why we're here, kiddo, to help them.
It's one thing to say. It's one thing to say, oh, you need to find joy, but it's another to teach people how to do it. Because
and here we are sitting here, a 45-year-old woman from Malaysia, 45-year-old Irish guy from New York, who are both parents and professionals that have bills to pay, and here we are, the unmitigated audacity. We've created our own shows. I've created my world. You've created your world. And we're using them both to use our passions to bring that love and light out to the universe, out to the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody out there can do exactly what we're doing. I pulled it out of my ass on April 8th. She pulled it out of her ass a year before. And here we are, trying to help people and try to bring love and light and stay away from the hate and the bad things out there. Wear a mask, be safe, but live your life and be joyful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
it's so awesome to talk to you. I'm so glad you came on the show, Alina. This has been so much fun.
Me too. This really is fun. And a lot of the things that you talk about really resonates with me, because I don't come out and say it, but I love the spiritual realm. I love the meditation. I love the beats. yeah, I really do. I really do think that um, mantras and having beads in your hands is a way to go within.
Whether it's rosary beads or whether it's
Mhm.
meditation beads, right? It's all the
Yeah,
same. It's all the same
yeah,
love and light. And
yeah,
just shut your eyes, take a deep breath in, think about what you love and who you love, and then try to bring that out into your waking time. That's
yeah,
all you gotta do. And if you want a podcast, talk to Alina or me. We can help you. Right?
yeah,
It's
yeah. Set
so
one up.
easy. It doesn't
Yeah,
cost a lot of money. It just takes a little time and passion. That's it.
yeah,
If you want to
yeah.
plan a little like her, it might take a little more time. Me, you just go at it, throw it up there. So, Alina, thank you. Will you come back someday? You come back on Dooner's World someday?
Yes,
Check
yes,
in on you, how you're doing.
yes. I would love to. I would
Cool.
love to.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you very
thanks,
much for coming on.
and thanks so much for having me. This was so fun.
Cool. I'm
Yeah.
glad. So, namaste.
Namaste.
Peace, love, and happiness to you and your husband and your family. I hope you guys have a
And
great
you
rest of the
too.
day. And
And
let's
you
talk
too.
soon. To my
Yes.
audience, I got great stuff coming on. Chris Franz from the Talking Heads, Arthur Bauer from Frank Zappa's band. Again, Pauline Butcher, Frank Zappa's secretary from 68 to 72. Oh my God, I got to finish reading this book. I got to stop the show so I can go finish reading the book. She's coming on Sunday. So much good stuff going on in Dooner's world. Find your love, find your light, find your passion, share it with the world. So that's it for today. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace out.